Hello and welcome to episode 303 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
And I'm Jay Swinningham. This week, an AI data center is coming to the backyard of the hosts of this podcast. We can see firsthand what a disruptive effect these data centers have on the electricity grids and the planet. In fact, I will ask AI later all about it.
Japanese car maker Honda is about to announce its first annual loss in almost 70 years. The car maker has struggled in the transition to EVs because, well, they didn't transition to EVs. Somebody please tell them to listen to our podcast.
Trump's solution to losing court battles with offshore wind companies, well, he's going to pay them $1 billion to stop building wind and start building natural gas plants in Texas. And for the record, if he wants to pay me $1 billion to stop this podcast and start producing natural gas out my ass, my wife is going to make me take him up on that offer. I think it's just a no-win situation there for me.
I think that's wise. California recently made it more expensive to put up rooftop solar, and a court has now upheld those new lower rates paid to consumers. How come no one talked about this on the Oscars red carpet? Why wasn't Ed Begley Jr. nominated for an Oscar? I sense a conspiracy.
All that and more on this edition of The Clean Energy Show. Oh, I want to welcome new listeners. We probably have some new listeners. We had a video that went viral last week. It's approaching 200,000 views on TikTok and even got some traction on Instagram. Never had anything, it's not huge viral, but I never had anything really take off on Instagram before. And it's thanks to people arguing. I think mostly if people argue about issues that we talk about on the show, especially those who have a worldview which does not include clean things, does not include EVs working, then they start to freak out. Now, there's some arguments because it was about Chinese EVs that, I'm not buying a Chinese EV. That's fair. I get that. And that makes total sense. That's a legitimate thing to think. But I look around my house. I mean, everything I'm looking at now, I'm looking at like 3 monitors, a camera. It's all made in China. It's all made in China. My phone's made in China. My water bottle is probably made in China. My microphone, everything, the shower that I just took, you know, the faucet head, everything was made in China. My big screen television.
Yeah.
Look around your house, people. You probably have a EV's worth of Chinese things easily in your house already. But not saying that you shouldn't say no to a Chinese EV if that's what you think, but it's very tempting.
Yeah, and growing up in the 70s, the thing you'd see on products all the time was made in Japan, and we see that much less now, and we're going to talk about that a bit later.
That was a good thing. When I went looking for VHS players at the clearance center for Sears, I remember looking for one made in Japan, and they were more expensive, but those were the ones that worked well. That's different now. People would never buy something in Korea at the time, and then things started being made in China, and people would never buy because they were bad at first, but now they have better quality than we do. They have such good quality control that a lot of their items, especially the high-ticket ones, are very good quality.
Yeah.
Now, you go to a dollar store, everything in there is from China. It might as well have a Chinese label on the front of the store, a flag, with Xi Jinping, a big picture of them are up because everything is coming from China in those stores. And people shop at those stores, especially with the downturn in the economy.
And the Japanese car makers didn't start off super strong either. It took them, several years to really get rolling and then become highly, highly valued. And, perhaps they're slipping a little bit now, which we'll talk about later. So I didn't actually watch the Oscars, so I don't know if they talked about solar panels on the red carpet or not. I know in the past, Ed Begley Jr. has been there on the red carpet to talk about environmental issues, but, he's not as famous.
I watched 2 red carpet shows because no one knows the Oscars more than me, except maybe Oscar himself. There was one on CNN before the ABC Oscar show.
Okay.
And some douchey studio executive walked up to the camera and they didn't want him there. They said, "We're live." They kept saying, "We're live." He said, "I know. So what do you want to talk about?" It was just really cringy in the worst way.
So I didn't watch it, but I'm wearing my Punch Drunk Love t-shirt in honor of Paul Thomas Anderson, who won for Best Picture and Best Director. When Punch Drunk Love came out, also directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, I was living in Toronto at the time, and I entered a contest in iMagazine.
Really?
And I won these Punch Drunk Love t-shirts, which are, it's probably
You would enter contests in your 30s and 40s
Absolutely.
In Toronto. Really?
Yeah.
Because you wanted
Came
one.
with
You liked your t-shirt.
free tickets to the movie and a couple of t-shirts.
Oh, nice.
It was great. And I really liked that movie. But no, I didn't watch the Oscars.
But you didn't care for this one as much. Didn't you go to Boston to watch this movie?
I saw it in VistaVision. This is a big deal. There was only 4 places in the world screening it in VistaVision. I went to see it. I enjoyed it. It's a good movie, but I think he's made better movies.
I agree, but then there was a lot of hype by the time I saw it. I think it's good to see a film
before the hype,
before the hype hits. But I think I was kind of pulling for Sinners at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so was the audience.
And I enjoyed Sinners, but didn't love that one either.
Well, you don't love anything, Brian. You're a hater.
I'm picky.
You might as well get into the comments on our TikTok videos and start arguing.
Well, you and I should really argue more on the podcast. I think we'd have more views.
We should. I think that would get ratings.
A Siskel and Ebert type adversarial relationship.
Yeah.
But anyway, last week you mentioned the Nokian Hakkapeliitta 01 studded tires that have retractable studs. And I was quite fascinated by that. So I thought I would look it up and learn a bit more about it. So these are winter studded tires that are called retractable. This is a new thing that's never been done before. Now, what I was hoping for wouldn't it be great if you just press a button and retract the studs on your winter tires?
Sure.
But it doesn't really work that way.
Like James Bond would.
So what it is, the tire has an outer layer, an inner layer, and a middle layer. And the studs are installed into the middle layer, and the middle layer is sensitive to temperature. That's how this works. So when that middle layer is warm, it's soft, and so when you drive on the studded tires, they get pushed back into the tire.
They push in. Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
And then the colder it gets, that middle layer gets hardened, and then it keeps the studs protruding out on the tire. So still very cool.
So those of you from warm weather climates, I should point out studs on tires are for driving on ice and slippery roads in winter climates. And they are little tiny metal spikes that come out and pinch, but they're usually noisy. So you were saying it'd be great if they, when it warms up and when there is no ice, that they would go back in. That'd be great.
Yeah, there's 2 downsides is they can be noisy if you're just driving on regular pavement without snow or ice. And they can cause some road damage. Like some places actually, they're illegal in some places because they do tend to cause a bit more damage to the road. So this helps with both of those things. Although according to the articles I read, it's only slightly quieter. It's not a huge night or day difference. But if you're looking for studded tires, it sounds like these are probably the best ones. They're not on sale yet. They're supposed to be on sale in North America in the fall, in time for winter.
In time for next winter, where we've warmed up today, where we are. And I'm saying goodbye to winter and hello to spring. So hello, spring. You know what, though? It was a mild winter. Had a little dusting of snow the other day, and I saw what we think are mice tracks in front of our house, which we've never seen before. So you were talking recently about a warm winter a few years ago where the mice was bad. So I got to get on top of that.
A couple of years ago, the mice population exploded because it was a mild winter. So maybe a similar problem.
I think that's going to happen again. I think so. I'm going to look out, mice. I'm coming for you. Gas prices are gone crazy, and some people ask me, what does it cost to drive an EV?
Yeah.
And, I think that every day I'm a more and more believer that this oil shock is actually going to be good for the energy transition because I keep seeing stories about people thinking about EVs. And even though it's probably going to be temporary, it might be 6 months, who knows, it might be a month, but I think it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a geopolitical expert, but what do you think?
No, and we're going to talk a little bit about balcony solar later. And the UK made an announcement recently that they're going to start working on, rules to allow balcony solar, which are small solar systems. And one of the reasons they cited was the current oil shocks and the oil shock prices. And deploying more solar in whatever form can help against those problems.
So the balcony solar are solar panels that attach to your balcony, whether you face south, east, or west, sometimes north, but people don't get much that way. And they hook them up themselves. All they have to do is plug them in. So you can go to a store, sometimes even a grocery store in Germany, pick them up for a couple $100 or more, and you're going to save a lot of money on your electricity, which is great.
Yeah.
But they're not a normal solar system that you have to get permits for and everything else and building plans.
Huge in Germany and slowly rolling out to other parts of the world because it does require a change in the regulations.
But it's about 40 cents a liter where we live because electricity prices vary everywhere. We have about, 16, 17 cents electricity per unit.
Yeah, so how much does gas cost here?
I think it's about $1.50 right now,
liter.
$1.60.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't pay him attention because we
I don't either.
We have 2 electric cars in our
driving electric for so long. And so you're saying the cost of an EV compared to gas, it's about 1/4.
It would be like 40 cents a liter.
Yeah.
This is a sedan. This isn't a pickup truck. This isn't a big, 9-person SUV or anything.
Yeah, and I've done this math before, and I sort of figured out where we live. Yeah, it's about 1/4 the cost of gas to drive an EV where we live. But in a place like BC on the west coast of Canada, they have very cheap electricity rates. So it's more like 1/8 the cost of gasoline. If you're in a place with low electricity prices.
Yeah. And of course, we have solar panels on both of our roofs, and that changes the equation as well. Yeah. It gets complicated to do the math on that, but ultimately you're saving money.
Yeah.
And, they're finally putting up electricity prices here.
Yeah.
They've stopped because for whatever reason, for political reasons, because it's a government-owned utility.
Yeah.
But, I think that's going to go up. And ours, your electricity once you pay for your panels, the electricity is the same for 30 years. Like it's not going to change, hopefully, unless you need a new inverter or something, which I have a story update on BYD. That's the Chinese maker of electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles and one of the biggest exporters of EVs in the world right now. Officials said they are open to building a plant in Canada. You remember Chinese EVs are coming to Canada. They're allowing 49,000 in with a 0 tariff. Right now, there's a 100% tariff.
Yeah.
Which still, even though they're cheaper, they're not going to be, they're not going to be able to compete at that rate. So, they're looking at building a plant in Canada, which is news. This is from a North American official of BYD, but they insisted that it won't be a joint venture. Sometimes Chinese companies will have a joint venture with an existing automaker. They'll share and they'll get that's what you have to do in China. You have to have a joint venture, usually if you're a North American automaker or a European automaker. Yeah, but they're thinking about acquiring a rival automaker. I don't know who that would be. Any guesses? I'm putting it down Nissan, which has been struggling, and Mazda, even Honda's been kind of struggling. They screwed up their bet on EVs, and they're backtracking now, thinking that EVs aren't a thing, which is stupid. In the global market, 25% of sales of cars are EVs now. They're building, this is news. We didn't know, if they would build flash chargers here because we had this announcement of this charging in 5 minutes. Most of your vehicle in 5 minutes on these 1.5 megawatt, these really powerful chargers that they're putting 20,000 of them up in China. Well, they are in fact going overseas with them. There's no mention of Canada, but they were discussed putting them into Europe. In fact, I think maybe even by the end of this month, there'll be some in Europe because they're launching a new car there. The lack of uptake of EVs in Western countries, at least on the scale that they were hoping, will be solved by these new batteries that charge fast and have much better performance. So they're not delaying the rollout of these chargers because they think this is going to solve the EV sale problem, and it will.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the viral video I had, was the 6 reasons why why some people will consider buying a Chinese EV, and it's because of these batteries from BYD, which have a lifetime warranty and charge in 5 minutes and charge faster than other vehicles with the same size battery, even on chargers that aren't these megawatt chargers. So that's a huge advantage. And they think that this is going to solve it. This is going to, they like, if you listen to the CEO at the end of our show last week, which we had AI translated to English, he was saying, this is the barrier that everyone in China isn't getting an EV. And it's slowed down around 55%. A lot of that has to do with the economy slowing, the taking incentives away. There's a lot of things like that. And Calypso, the Clean Energy Cat, has made an appearance on Brian's podcast station. And she is rubbing herself on the, it's a she, right? On
yes, a she.
The microphone now, getting some hair on there, sniffing your face, seeing what you had for breakfast. What did you have for breakfast?
I had, it was like a egg croissant thing.
I knew eggs were involved. I could just sense it. So the timing of them BYD putting up chargers in Europe coincide with the launch of the updated Denza Z9 GT, which is set to make its European debut April 8th in Paris. The flagship EV will use BYD's new Blade battery too. So yeah, and I've seen reports of these Blade batteries, we're talking about this great new advance, and we were saying, well, it's real. And how real is it? They're actually literally going into stores as we speak in China. They are going into BYD stores, these batteries in some models. So they are real and they are happening and people are snapping them up. So apparently this is starting to happen in April this year. Most Chinese EVs currently in Europe are only 400-volt EVs. That's kind of like the my EV and your EV. They're sort of limited if you're 400-volt. The Korean Hyundai and Kia EVs have opted for, some of them, the more expensive ones have opted for an 800-volt, which makes them charge faster. Yeah. These are a little over 1,000 volts, I think. So they're megavolt EVs. The batteries have higher voltage so they can accept a charge faster. Does it make them more dangerous? EVs are inherently safe, and a 400-volt battery, if you stuck your tongue on it, will kill you just as fast as a 1,000-volt battery, so it doesn't really matter. But I thought I would update, and that's what's coming right now. So this is spreading, and they realize that every market they're in, if they get these megawatt chargers, no one will have an excuse not to buy an EV.
Yeah, and the thing that I would add to that is electric cars are already good enough. Like you and I have been driving, I've been driving electric for 6 years now, and I have no complaints about the current technology. So this is just, a further step forward that will convince a lot more people of their viability. But hey, like they're already great. They're already viable.
Yeah, my oldest car is 13 years old in January, and was 13 years old in January, and it's, I guess, 8 years for me. So our new car is working just fine. We live in a very cold climate here, and they work just fine, thank you.
So moving on to Honda, which we were just mentioning recently. This is from Reuters. They're about to announce a $15.7 billion write-down in restructuring costs. This is related to their EV business and their attempt to move into the EV realm. Not a particularly good attempt. This is Honda's first loss in almost 70 years. This is a very successful, consistently successful company. But, their heritage, their expertise is engines. This is what they're known for, gasoline engines.
That's right.
And I think it's just been hard for them to kind of give up that notion that they need to switch the focus from what their traditional core business is. And they've said particularly that it has hurt their sales in China, which we talk about frequently. The Chinese cars are coming on strong. They're very high tech, and they are mostly electric. And Honda just simply can't compete. They're really just working on the same kind of platforms that they've been using for decades, and they really just haven't changed with the times. They have also now canceled 3 EV models that they were going to build in the U.S., and this is partly in response to the way the political winds are blowing in the U.S. We know that it's not a pro-electric vehicle government down there. But of course, in the long run, this is only going to hurt them. This is only going to slow down their transition to EVs. I just can't imagine a scenario where that's a good idea. If the problem has been a reluctance to adopt new technology and more tech-focused cars, that's probably not the way to do it.
Well, here's the thing, Brian. The political pendulum is going to swing back the other way.
Again, eventually, yes.
I was doubtful about that, but I know that Trump has got a big gun to his head with these oil prices, and I happen to know that they're not going to get better.
Yeah.
So this is going to be and the American people aren't buying into this war at all. Even the Joe Rogans of the world are against it.
Yeah.
This could be the end of his powers. This could affect the midterms, and yeah, regardless, aside from authoritarianism being a possibility, I think the pendulum is obviously going to swing back. We all know that it swings. And when that happens, you got a Democratic president in there. What happens? There's EV incentives again. There's EV manufacturing trying to catch up with the world because they're living in reality. Yeah. And they know that the rest of the world is benefiting greatly from going to this. Not only does it clean the air, not only does it save the planet for your children somewhat, this is going to be important for the economy of the future, and other people are benefiting and they're not.
Yeah, and the transition to clean energy is inevitable. Like, it's really a thing you cannot stop, and trying to stop it is weird and not very productive. It's very counterproductive. This is a better, cheaper technology that will win in the end. It's just going to take a few years.
Yeah, and you know what happens when the pendulum swings back and then all that happens? They're going to be caught with their pants down. Because the Chinese automakers are going to be, well, they're already there.
Yeah, it's already happening.
But they'll be even in a better position a year, 2, 3, 4 from now. And what's Honda, Toyota, and those guys who are laggards and the big three in America, what are they going to do? They're going to be caught with their pants down, and it's going to be brutal. It is going to be brutal for some of those automakers, and we've been predicting this for years, and unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And, the Honda is making the Prelude, which is actually a Chevy EV with Honda branding.
Yep.
And I think it was the best-selling Honda for a while because people who were loyal to the Honda brand, and you should be loyal to the Honda brand because it's a good brand.
Yeah.
My 2002 SUV still running. It's an Acura. My son is driving it around, and I'm surprised it hasn't died. But it's still going strong, and I might take it to a high school one day and get them to fix it up for me so I can tow my camper again.
Yeah, and those kind of partnerships have happened in the past too, like with gasoline cars, like Toyota and Mazda have collaborated on cars before. It's always difficult and expensive to develop a new car platform of any kind. So partnering with other makers is not the craziest thing, but step it up, Honda.
We're a 145-year-old company, and this will be our largest ever investment in this province.
Bell Canada has finally confirmed it is behind the proposed AI data center south of Regina. The telecom giant says once built, the 300-megawatt facility will be the largest center of its kind in Canada, and a key piece of Bell's plan to build up AI data sovereignty in the country.
Yeah, there's a data center coming to our little province in the prairies of Canada. Our, 1.2 million people here on a big rectangle in the middle of Canada on your map.
Yeah.
Cold as hell.
Yeah, we live in
warm in the summer.
Part of Canada that nobody cares about.
Nobody cares about.
Yeah.
But our national telecom, Bell, which is an Ontario province telecom that is nationally has its claws across the country. Not here. We have a local government-owned telecom here, but they use the Bell network, so nobody likes Bell.
Yeah.
I don't like Bell.
No.
Bell can go to hell.
Yeah.
It rhymes. They're building the largest data center in Canada. Where? Here, where the grid is one of the worst grids in North America.
Yeah.
One of the worst grids because we have coal on our grid. And we're pro-coal here. We were supposed to Canada was supposed to get rid of all of its coal by 2030.
Yeah.
Not here. They're saying we're pushing it to 2050.
Yeah.
Hell, we might go beyond that because coal is great.
Yeah.
So what they're going to do is a data center is just a bunch of warehouses with computers, these GPUs running at full speed, and they get hot and they have to be cooled. You spend a lot of your electricity on the computers that are running, computing for AI to learn things and do whatever AI learning does. And you have to cool those computers. So you can cool them with fans from the air outside. And you were saying, we'd be a good place here because we get so cold.
Yeah. Every once in a while, you'll hear a data center announcement in a place like Minnesota or something, and they mention that as a plus, like you literally, hey, just open the windows in the winter and you can cool your computers that way.
So this announcement had none of that. And the journalists here, God bless them, they're working their asses off.
Yeah.
It's a small market. They didn't know what questions to ask. They have no idea what questions to ask. We should have been there.
Yeah.
Should get a little press hat.
We should have been on the Oscars red carpet, James.
And a trench coat. We should be on the Oscars red carpet. I don't know why we're not. We should be there. And now the Clean Energy Show talks to Ethan Hawke. This is a closed loop water thing. So yeah, these things are known for using a lot of water. And what they do is they pump water in and it evaporates and it's gone. Not gone forever, but it's into the atmosphere, which is a greenhouse gas, by the way, water vapor. It does warm the planet, but this is closed loop, so they're hoping to store the water in private underground cisterns, but that is subject to leaks and evaporation. In fact, AI says, ironically, that 70% less water use than evaporative cooling, but still, it doesn't mean there's no water use, it just means there's 70% less water use, so that's one thing. The province, the government here claims it's going to bring in $12 billion in revenue somehow to the province's economy. How? Do we charge 1 penny per computation? Like, do we get a revenue off that? Is it a resource? I don't know how that happens. They're going to add 800 temporary construction jobs. Woohoo. These are not major construction jobs. This is just a shell of a warehouse to build.
They're building a building.
And some parking lots, 300 parking lot space for 80 full-time jobs once it starts fully operating in 2027. The center is a part of Bell Canada's initiative to build sovereign AI data center infrastructure under Bell AI Fabric, including a data center supercluster in British Columbia, which has largely hydropower. So it's cleaner than coal. controversial hydropower, but it's existing. Most of it's existing, and it's already built. Long-term tenancy agreements contracted with artificial intelligence companies Cerebras and CoreWeave. So they're contracting out to AI companies to do their dirty work, literally, for them. The center is built adjacent to an existing SAS power substation. That means that it's a big fat connection to the power grid because you need lots of electricity. How much do you need? 300 megawatts. That's a third of a nuclear reactor literally in our backyard.
It's for one data center.
You could walk there.
Yeah.
You could walk there from the edge of the city. It's right close to the city.
It's very close to my house where they're going to put it.
Very nice. You'll probably hear the whining of the fans. And the Elon Musk is building a data center in the southern U.S. where he's putting up natural gas turbines. I'm glad that's not happening. Thank God for that. 300 megawatts, it's a tenth of the power in our province. It's a tenth of our whole jurisdiction's power for one data center. And you know what they're going to do? You know what they're saying? The premier is saying, we're one of the jurisdictions in North America that has the power to do this. You know why they have the power? Because they didn't shut down the coal.
Yeah.
You know what they're going to do? They're going to shovel more coal onto the fire for this plant. That's what's going to happen. It's not like they're going to put up solar panels. I was waiting for the announcement to put up solar panels or a wind farm, because this is, coordinated with the First Nation here, and that they're leaders in doing that. They're the land that often gets used for, power purchase agreements for green energy. None of that. They're not even talking about putting a freaking solar panel on the roof. Would that kill you, Bell? Take your bloody business elsewhere, Bell. Take it to a clean place. There's other cold climates with clean electricity. Go to Quebec. I don't know what they're doing here. It's just garbage. People should boycott Bell. Bell CEO Mirko Bibic said ensuring adequate power supply was crucial to the decision to come here. Yeah, shoveling more coal. You are the dirtiest data center around, pretty much. This is a Bell quote here. You need the power in order to deliver that compute capacity, and what we have is a province that is willing to make the power available to generate that compute capacity, willing and able to filthy up the world just fine. So I guess they'll just throw more coal in the burner. And happy story for all mankind, all humankind. 300 megawatts, Brian, that could power 300,000 homes. 2.5 people per home here where we live. There's only 50% more occupied homes in the whole province. So yeah, that's like 2/3 of all the homes, the power that gets used, they're doing that. Nice. These companies have primarily made their AI models smarter by not writing better code, but by making them bigger, ramming more data through more powerful computing chips. That what do? They, of course, use more electricity. OpenAI has announced plans for facilities requiring more than 30 gigawatts of power in total. That's 30 coal plants, 30 nuclear reactors, more than the largest recorded demand for all of New England. This is the Saskatchewan power mix that they're tapping into. Natural gas is 44%. Clean, beautiful natural gas isn't clean. It's cleaner than coal. Coal is 24 to 36% historically. Well, guess what? That 24% is going to start bumping up. The more data centers you add, that's what's going to go up, not the renewables. We do have a 100 megawatt solar farm here, but you would need to make a gigawatt of solar for that to completely power that plant. There's no batteries mentioned. They should be taking, low demand times of the day overnight when the power supply doesn't have to ramp up as much. They should have batteries, and they should do at least that. They've got 300 space parking lots. You could put solar panels on there if you wanted to, on canopies. They're not doing that. And right now, I think what's going to happen is this. We're talking, the NDP is talking, the opposition party is talking about how they did a study. They paid experts for a study, and they said the power rates in this province are going to double by 2050 with the current policies that are in place. So this is probably going to accelerate that. The more data centers we have, the more that's going to accelerate.
That's 24 years away. I would expect it could easily be more than double by then. Just with regular inflation, it's going to be probably double.
Sure. And I think what's going to happen here, as much as a lot of more than most places, more reasonable places, people are going to put solar on their house.
Yeah.
They're going to put solar on their fence because you can have solar fences now. And batteries are becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Well, one day you and I, we're going to have batteries in our house. I mean, we have batteries in our driveway.
Yeah.
We're starting to be able to use them as well. So what happens is when you have solar panels, it produces too much power during the day and you have to feed it into the grid and get paid for that. And how much you get paid is really how much the solar panel is worth it. But with battery prices going down, instead of doing that, you put in your own battery and use that overnight and in the morning and in the evening, and you don't have to worry about feed-in tariffs. And then suddenly people are using less electricity. Some of them are completely disengaging from the grid completely, and then the electricity prices go way up after that. Look at Pakistan right now.
Yeah. Well, because I'm so annoyed at our utility, I would love to just disconnect from them entirely. But right now, it's just a little too expensive for the batteries that I would need, for the panels I would need.
One day, Brian.
One day. And, if they keep doing what they're doing, I won't be the only one wanting to do that. And then they'll really be screwed. Speaking of rooftop solar, this brings us to California. And this is something we've talked about on and off on the podcast for years now. This story is from Canary Media. California is now on the version 3 of their net energy metering rules for rooftop solar. So in the simplest rooftop solar type installation, it is net metering, which means your power meter basically runs forward or in reverse. When you're producing too much power, it goes back into the grid and your power meter just goes in reverse. And if you need power, it goes the other way. And it's just, you're on equal footing with what you pay to the grid and what the grid pays you for your excess electricity. And you and I got in early on the solar program that they have here. So that's what we have. We're grandfathered into the older program where the meter just runs forward and backwards. That's typically the best way to do it. Version 1 and 2 of California's rules were more like that. And sometimes they can even be more generous than that. I know Ontario for a while had very generous rates that they would pay you for rooftop solar because, they knew it was cheaper than building another nuclear plant to just encourage people to put more power on the grid. But version 3 of their rules in California went into effect in 2023, and that cut the rate paid by consumers as much as 75%. So the meter no longer runs forward and backward in California. You're just getting a fraction of what you used to get. And as soon as they did that, there were numerous court challenges. And so this has been winding its way through the courts now for a couple of years. And finally, there was a ruling, and these new rules in version 3 have been upheld. So these lower prices paid to consumers is going to continue in California. So we've seen a drop-off in rooftop solar in California in the last couple of years. And now with this court ruling, that is going to continue to be the case because the less you get paid for your rooftop solar, the less likely you are to put it up and the less likely people are to do it. This is always unfortunate because this is a climate emergency. We need all hands on deck. If you want your consumers to add power to the grid, that's generally a good thing. I suppose there can be an issue sometimes with peak solar, in midday. And sometimes grids do struggle with having too much power on a sunny day. But we also know that California is hugely deploying battery storage. They have some storage hydro in California where they can let their hydro dams fill up with water when there's a lot of electricity on the grid. So, there's various ways to deal with it. But that's an unfortunate thing in California. It could still be appealed to the Supreme Court of California. So we'll see if that happens. But, for the time being, unfortunately, those rules were upheld. And then I came across a story as well from Australia. This is from Green Tech Lead. And Australia, as we've talked about many times on the show, has always had very favorable rules for rooftop solar. They've really reduced the red tape. They've made it very easy for people to put up rooftop solar. And so this is not for sure or anything, but they are doing a review now in Australia. The Australian Energy Market Commission is thinking about increasing the fixed network charges, i.e., they're not going to change the rates paid for the electricity, but possibly the monthly minimums, basically. Everybody connected to the grid typically pays a monthly minimum. And so they're thinking of raising those in Australia. Not for certain yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, but Australia, much of Australia has really good solar and warm enough weather. They're not here. They're not us. They're not digging out from snow all the time. So they can more easily go off grid.
Yeah.
Usually it takes more than your rooftop
Yeah.
to do that. But they're closer to the equator, so they're less seasonal. They have more consistent sunlight throughout the year. And you get a cheap battery one of these days, and suddenly the Australian grid falls apart because people start going off the grid because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
And then that makes it even more expensive, and then the more people go off, right? That's a horrible loop that they could be facing.
We're pretty far north, so it's harder to get off the grid where we live because the daylight hours in the winter are pretty short and the sun is at a bad angle, so it is more difficult. The one silver lining in California, which we have mentioned before, they are working on some legislation to allow balcony solar, one of our favorite things. So that's not been passed yet, but balcony solar just is plug-and-play solutions. They're much smaller systems is the unfortunate thing. Like a rooftop system can generate way more power. Balcony systems are smaller, but of course more people can install them. Just think of a high-rise apartment building, all the units in there, everybody puts up a couple of solar panels, just plugs them into a regular outlet. This is a huge, huge thing in Germany and is slowly sort of rolling out with regulation changes to various other places.
Well, if it's plug and play, you could theoretically lay them on your back lawn facing south and plug them into your power outlet. You could mount them to a fence. You could plug and play just means you don't need a special inverter and a special cutoff for the power grid. They just go feed into your home's electricity wiring, and you consume it as it comes in. Yeah, that's usually why they're small and they don't you don't use more than you're making usually. But still, the more expensive prices are for electricity, like Australia, like California, that payoff period for solar becomes shorter and more enticing. For us, it's pretty long.
Balcony solar just plugs into a regular outlet, but that limits the size of it. You can't have 10,000 watts feeding into a regular outlet.
I think that it would be interesting to build a new house, like you're building a cottage, to think about future-proofing electrical, just the way the circuits are designed. Yeah. To have a outside plug, maybe, that has its own circuit, maybe its own circuit breaker, maybe there's different things you can do to maybe optimize that. Certainly you want to charge your electric vehicles when you're out there as well. Brian, I have a new segment here. It's called, I have a $1 per week subscription to the New York Times.
Okay.
Because I'm going to briefly skim through some New York Times stories from today, because I thought they were interesting, and I want to touch on them. If you don't.
And it cost you $1, so we better talk about it.
We better talk about it, because that dollar is valuable. The Cuban power grid, as we've been talking about, there's been some sanctions against Cuba. The Cuban power grid is not in good shape. Well, they've experienced a total blackout at 2 p.m. on Monday. And Monday night, 5% of the grid was up and running. But the whole island, completely gone. This is happening, multiple times recently. It's still down, from what I know. We were recording this Tuesday afternoon, or Tuesday midday. The whole nation is in the dark, essentially. It's an oil blockade that the U.S. has imposed upon them. They were burning really bad oil. Some places do this. They're not burning natural gas for power. They're burning terrible polluting oil to make power, because it is, it's 11 million people there. But still, and it is an island, so you don't get all the pollution to yourself. Yeah. It is the third major blackout in the last 4 months, the third, pretty much island-wide blackout in the last 4 months. Cuba's aging grid has drastically eroded in recent years. They haven't been able to keep it up. The economy is not great there, and things are bad. This is leading to daily outages, and a lot of people are there when you see news reports on this. They're talking about spoiled food.
Yeah.
A couple of solar panels, a car battery, and one of those little electric coolers, which are not the greatest things in the world, but they would probably keep some of your food from spoiling. A professor at American University who has tracked Cuba for years said the country's energy grid hasn't been maintained properly, and its infrastructure is way past its normal useful life. The technicians working on the grid, he says, are magicians to keep it running at all, given the shape that it's in. The island has not received oil shipments in 3 months and was operating on solar power, which they are increasing as fast as they can.
Yep.
And if you are in the middle class in Cuba, which is not many people, you're probably going out and buying solar yourself and putting it on your home. Natural gas is also being used in thermal electric plants, which is this this horrible oil, which they were shipping in and makes up a large part of the grid. A lot of hospitals, unfortunately, had to cancel thousands of surgeries. If I was a person getting life-saving surgery, I would not be happy right now. It would be a pretty scary time. It reminds me of the neonatal hospital we talked about in rural Africa. And, a charity went and fixed that because babies were dying when the power went out, because the power went out all the time.
Yeah.
They installed a small solar microgrid, not that much bigger than some people have on their homes, and batteries, which, like a Tesla Powerwall, which you can buy for your home and things like that. A few of those, and that solved the problem. Babies no longer dying for that reason. So this is another story. This is how is the U.S. administration dealing with offshore wind? You know how the U.S. administration hates EVs, hates solar, hates wind. Windmills, as they call them. But they're not windmills. They're wind turbines.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The U.S. administration, I don't know what bone they have to pick, other than they're thinking it's woke, or if their fossil fuel donors are really getting to them. Like, what's going on?
They're appealing to a certain base.
Okay. A certain base, says Brian Stockton. Get that printed up on a T-shirt. I'm just going to read the first 3 paragraphs of this New York Times story because I couldn't believe it. I was having my cornflakes, not really cornflakes, but breakfast this morning. I think cornflakes is funnier than what I had, which was toast. But I'll say it anyway. The Trump administration is considering a new strategy for throttling the country's offshore wind industry after federal judges blocked its 5 previous attempts to stop wind farms under construction off the East Coast. Imagine you're putting up a wind farm off the East Coast and they say, no, you got to stop. We don't like wind. What a pain in the butt that would be. Well, the judges agreed with them. And senior administration officials, writes the New York Times, are drafting settlement agreements that would pay nearly $1 billion to Total Energies, the French energy company behind 2 wind farms off New York State and North Carolina, according to documents reviewed by the New York Times, including copies of those agreements. Under the terms of the proposed settlements, the Interior Department would cancel the leases in federal waters for the 2 projects known as Attentive Energy and Carolina Long Bay. The documents show the Justice Department would then pay more than $928 million to Total Energies, reimbursing the company for its winning bids in lease sales during the Biden administration. In exchange, Total Energies would abandon its plans to begin building the wind farms, and it would also commit to investing in natural gas infrastructure in Texas, as the Trump administration prioritizes the production of fossil fuels over renewables like wind and solar. Yeah, I got to pause for a second on that one. That's just, sometimes we have to touch on some of the bad things that happen in the world. Yeah, there's another story called Stuck in Self-Driving Taxis, or about being stuck in self-driving taxis, I should say. They talked about a Waymo in San Francisco. This is a thing now where people go crazy and start attacking self-driving taxis. Yeah. You hear about mobs of them after, certain parties and events going on, get drunk and attack self-driving taxis. Well, if you're in a self-driving taxi, you can't drive off. A taxi driver could peel out of there and go away.
Yeah.
Self-driving taxi senses a person and stops.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
So they described a case where the man punched the car's windows and tried lifting up the vehicle. He then yelled that he wanted to kill the passengers for giving money to a robot. You're not giving money to the robot.
I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords.
It's going to a company. It's not going to a robot. The robot, if it did go to the robot, I'm sure the robot would be very generous with its money. It would support homeless shelters and free oil for the robots to lubricate them.
If you want to contact us, please drop us an email, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. There is also a voicemail link, speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow. Or if you want to send an audio clip, record an audio voice memo, and you can email it to us as well.
The Clean Energy Show podcast is made possible by you guys, our listeners, who support us on Patreon. We're very grateful to all of the people, and there are dozens of you who are supporting our work on Patreon. It makes it happen for us. You get perks when you do that, ad-free episodes. Some of the other perks include exclusive access to our Discord server, discounts at our merch store, early access to our episodes before the public, behind-the-scenes material and private updates, and of course, thank you credits on our video podcasts and verbal shoutouts on our audio podcast. Coming up next is the lightning round. Time for the lightning round.
The lightning round is a fast-paced look at the latest headlines in climate, clean energy and transportation.
All right, Australia could reduce its reliance on foreign fuel by more than 1 billion liters a year if it replaced 1 million petrol-fueled cars with electric vehicles. That story is in The Guardian. And yes, that's how it works, Brian. You replace the gas cars, you stop importing fuel. Israel's bombing of an oil depot in Tehran may be the largest release of petrochemical toxins over a civilian population since the Iran-Iraq War, says New York Magazine. Fossil fuels, Brian, bad.
Very bad, especially when they explode.
Several records on the Texas power grid in the last few days to talk about. The first time batteries met 20% of demand and went over 10 gigawatts into the power grid. That's a lot of power from batteries that people say don't work. Renewables provided 79% of the power grid at 1 o'clock in the afternoon for a moment or two, the highest ever. Renewables 79% briefly for the power grid in Texas when the sun was shining midday. And solar exceeded 32 gigawatts and met 65% of demand in Texas. Both are firsts. Donald Trump's second-term policies are likely to drive soaring rates of lung disease and premature death, according to a wide-ranging new study by pulmonary specialists and public health experts. The analysis, published in the American Journal of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine, examines policies adopted during Trump's second term across 10 areas, including healthcare access, environmental regulation, workplace protections, and, of course, vaccine uptake. U.S. web search traffic for electric vehicles is up 20% in the week following the initial attack on Iran. This is what I'm talking about, baby. You know, you bomb oil, you raise the prices, people get interested. Yeah. This is a definite, measurable thing that we can see just in the week. They weren't even that high in the week. Gas prices being high may influence people who are currently shopping for a car, and if prices stay high for 3 months or more, even those who weren't in the market for a new vehicle may consider electric vehicles, reports.
Yeah, well, I had to ask you what the price of gasoline is right now, and of course, neither of us knows because we haven't bought gasoline in years. It just doesn't matter.
What's a gas station? It's a place for buying lottery tickets. Paris is making the streets in front of 300 schools traffic-free. So they are saying no traffic, pedestrian only in front. I think that's a great idea. That's from the Financial Times.
That's fantastic. Yeah, anytime cities do these kind of pedestrian-only experiments, they're generally a success, and people want to keep it that way.
And Paris is doing a great job with that. The Virginia legislature has passed a balcony solar bill, making it the second state to do so after Utah. BY Brazil plant, that's the Chinese automaker, has a plant in Brazil making cars. They're going to export 100,000 vehicles to neighboring markets, Mexico and Argentina. They've already got the requests for those vehicles, so it's happening. The plant currently has a capacity of 150,000 new energy vehicles per year, but plans to expand to 600,000. And when those happen, Brian, fossil fuels go down. The use of fossil fuels for road transportation goes down. The first new Chinese EV to enter the newly welcoming Canadian market will be the Geely-controlled brand Lotus. So we know that it's not your Huawei, not your BYD that's coming here. It's going to be, we'll find out later, but it's going to take a while to figure out which brands will come.
Yeah,
I know I read about a lot of people waiting for Chinese EVs in the EV forums. I'm surprised, actually.
Yeah, and of course, they don't have any dealerships set up here. They don't have any repair depots set up here. So, it won't be a quick process.
It's important. Whenever I consider a Tesla, I think that their new priority for robots and AI and not cars, I fear that they're going to close the one shop they have in our province, and that would make it hard to buy a Tesla in the future. Because if you can't get it serviced, I can't even get my Nissan serviced because Nissan won't get into electric cars in our city. I have to go to another city to get a service for certain things. Or, well, you can go to a third-party place, but it's not the same. Russia is now making an extra $150 million per day in its oil sales amid rising prices due to the Iran war. $150 million a day. The Russian government is set to receive up to $5 billion in extra revenue by the end of this month. And they're going to use that on bombing Ukraine. And the fossil fuel's bad. Fossil fuel's bad. That's a theme here. In England, a study showed that homes located within 20 kilometers of nuclear power plants lost an average of 4.2% of their value following the Fukushima disaster. So they studied what happened to this is all about perception of nuclear safety changing after that disaster and how it reverberated around the world. And now they've done a study. When was Fukushima? Like, I guess almost 15 years ago? Not quite, but almost 15 years ago. Yeah, and that's reverberated around the world. And they did a study and showed that the prices actually went down for 4.2%. So that is the perception of nuclear is quantified there in house pricing. An Algerian research team has developed a smart water spray cooling system for PV panels that activates only when temperatures exceed a set threshold, boosting the efficiency while minimizing water use in desert conditions. Now, if you're new, you may not know that solar panels lose the amount of electricity they output the hotter they get. Once they hit 25 degrees Celsius, which doesn't have to be an air temperature of 25 with the sun shining on them, could be a lot less than that, they start to lose their efficiency, 1% per degree or something like that. So cooling them sometimes makes sense, and they've done a study that if you have these solar panels in deserts, and often a lot of the solar in the world is in deserts because it makes sense, sunny, dry, you have to clean them though, you have to get the dust off them, and sometimes cooling them helps. The system raised power output and reduced module temperatures, offering similar efficiency to continuous cooling, but was far lower water consumption, pump operation, and other costs. So the module temperatures dropped from 58.6 degrees Celsius, which is really hot, to 36.7, which is a little under 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And finally this week, China exported almost 1 million vehicles in the first months of 2026. Now, we talked about BYD sales going down because everyone was waiting for the new BYD Blade 2 batteries. There's a lot more automakers than BYD. There's like 50 of them that are making EVs in China. And some of them are going to go bankrupt, but some of them are also exporting a lot of vehicles. 1 million vehicles in the first 2 months of this year. I mean, when we started this podcast, there was barely 1 million in the whole world. And 2 months, that's not even China, that's exporting. And that, Brian, most importantly, is up 58% year on year. Like, that's a huge uptake of export of Chinese vehicles. And everyone that goes out there displaces a gas car or is not replaced by another gas car. Most of them are likely EVs, which correlates to 9 million exports every year. That's exports from China. And imagine what would happen with these new Blade 2 batteries get on the market. That's going to take off, and everybody else is going to be making a version of that. The other battery companies are not going to fall behind. That's going to really take off the EV market in the coming years.
Well, that's it for this week. You can find us on social media at Clean Energy Pod, and that Patreon is patreon.com/cleanenergypod. Email cleanenergyshow@gmail.com, and of course, hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening to this podcast, and you'll get new episodes every single week.
And if you want to help us out in a non-financial way, why don't you give us a rating or a review on your favorite podcast app that you're listening to us on, be it Apple iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or what have you, Spotify. We really appreciate it. Thank you to our Patreon Clean Club executive members, Green Bastard, Brent Routley, and Tiernan. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks for supporting the podcast.
See you next week.